How close are we to a coronavirus vaccine? Alok Sharma, the business secretary, says that the clinical trial at the University of Oxford is progressing well and, if it proves successful, the doses could be ready by the end of the summer. He also says he was very proud of how quickly British scientists and researchers have come together in their efforts developing a vaccine. Mr. Sharma announced a further £84 million in funding to accelerate the work currently underway at Oxford and Imperial College. The eyes of the nation and perhaps the world are firmly upon Professor Adrian Hill and his team at Oxford University. This week, the pharmaceutical giant AstraZeneca announced a $1.2 billion deal with the U.S. government to produce 400 million doses of the unproven coronavirus vaccine first produced in Professor Hill's Oxford lab. Meanwhile, the British government has agreed to pay for up to 100 million doses, adding that 30 million may be ready for UK citizens by September 2020. The stakes could hardly be higher. If proven effective, the ZD1222 vaccine would allow people to leave their homes, go back to work, and rebuild the economy. But the government has also cautioned that an effective coronavirus vaccine may never be found. In a foreword to the government's strategy to ease lockdown, the Prime Minister says that the only feasible long-term solution to end the coronavirus pandemic is the creation of an effective vaccine or treatment, but warned this was not an inevitability. The government's chief scientific advisor, Sir Patrick Vallance, says the development of an effective vaccine could never be guaranteed. Meanwhile, the UK's first dedicated vaccine-making facility is building capacity to produce tens of millions of doses to guard against coronavirus, and the first coronavirus antibody test has been approved by Public Health England. Human trials in UK clinical teams at the University of Oxford's Jenner Institute and Oxford Vaccine Group began work in January to develop a COVID-19 vaccine. The team progressed to human trials on April 23, and a study involving up to 510 healthy volunteers between 18 and 55 is now underway in Oxford and Southampton, with 3 further sites likely to be added. Scientists working on the vaccine have said they could know within 6 weeks whether it will work. Sir John Bell, Regius Professor of Medicine at Oxford University, says several hundred Britons have now been given the experimental jab, with hopes that signals about whether it works could emerge by mid-June. The UK will join only the US with 2 studies in China in beginning human trials. It was revealed on that the Oxford University vaccine trial is heading into hospitals amid fears that COVID-19 is not prevalent enough in wider society. After announcing the further £84 million in new funding, Mr. Sharma says this new money will help mass-produce the Oxford vaccine so that if current trials are successful we have dosages to start vaccinating the UK population straight away. He also says pharmaceutical firm AstraZeneca had finalized a global licensing agreement, Oxford University with government support, adding, "This means that if the vaccine is successful, AstraZeneca will work to make 30 million doses available by September for the UK as part of an agreement for over 100 million doses in total." Mr. Sharma added the UK will be first to get access, but that the government would also ensure that we're able to make the vaccine available to developing countries at the lowest possible cost. Matt Hancock, the health secretary, says, if successful, the first 30 million vaccines will be at the start for the most vulnerable. Mr. Hancock told MPs in the Commons, if it does work, it is likely to be one of the first available in the world, then we have agreement to make sure that 100 million doses are available for the UK, the first 30 million of which will be right at the start for the most vulnerable. That is a UK-wide policy, they'll deliver it right across these islands. He says, vaccine science is an uncertain business, that is why they cannot ever be 100% sure that there will be a safe and effective vaccine. But they're putting everything they possibly can into making sure that they can give them the best possible chance for every citizen of the whole United Kingdom. On the partnership with AstraZeneca, Sir John says, once they get an approval by the regulators they don't want to have to go back to the beginning and work out how they manufacture it at scale. They also want to make sure that the rest of the world will be ready to make this vaccine at scale so that it gets to populations in developing countries, for example, where the need is very great. They really need a partner to do that, and that partner has a big job in the UK because their manufacturing capacity in the UK for vaccines isn't where it needs to be, and so they are going to work together with AstraZeneca to improve that considerably route to treatment. And how they work. What's the latest on the Oxford route? Until last week, the Oxford vaccine was considered the clear frontrunner in the global race. However, a widely reported article in Forbes cast doubt on the results of the trial, suggesting that results actually showed the vaccine did not prevent the animals from catching or spreading the virus because traces were found in the creatures' noses. The vaccine was tested at the National Institute of Health's Rocky Mountain Laboratory in Montana on rhesus macaque monkeys who are thought to have similar immune systems to humans. Dr. William Hasseltine says, all of the vaccinated monkeys treated with the Oxford vaccine became infected when challenged as judged by recovery of virus genomic RNA from nasal secretions. A former Harvard Medical School professor who had a pivotal role in the development of early HIV/AIDS treatments. According to Hasseltine, there was no difference in the amount of viral RNA detected from this site in the vaccinated monkeys as compared to the unvaccinated animals. Which is to say, all vaccinated animals were infected. But Professor Hill, director of the university's Jenner Institute, said the article was misleading because the monkeys had been deliberately overdosed on coronavirus in order to test for safety. He thinks the honest truth is that the author is a long-retired senior Harvard virologist, infectious disease guy. He says, the doctor is not a vaccine developer. They used a really high dose and these guys gave it not just into the lungs and the nose. They gave it into the mouth, and they gave it into the eyes. They gave a huge dose. He mean, seriously, it's that level of basic. Even so, Professor Hill accepts the chances of success still hang firmly in the balance. The US government, the UK government, loads of charities and philanthropists are all saying we'll pay to have it manufactured, before you finish the trial. According to him, it's a huge kind of vote of confidence in what they're doing. It's really flattering, but that doesn't guarantee the result. It could be nothing or could be great or somewhere in between. Elsewhere, researchers at Imperial have developed a candidate which, when injected, will deliver the genetic instructions to muscle cells. This should provoke an immune response and create immunity to the virus. The team, led by Professor Robin Shattuck from Imperial's Department of Infectious Disease, has been testing the candidate in animals since early February. The business secretary says that Imperial College London was making good progress and would look to move into clinical trials for a vaccine by mid-June, with larger-scale trials in October. The trial is not yet open to recruitment, but will be announced in due course. According to Dr. Katrina Pollack, clinical research fellow in vaccinology, who will be leading the work at Imperial's Hammersmith campus. This is the first in-human trial for this candidate vaccine and an important step towards developing a safe and effective vaccine against the novel coronavirus. Their clinical team is excited to begin trials as a key center in this landmark study to combat COVID-19. Human trials in the U.S. In the United States, a vaccine trial is showing promising early results, after the candidate reportedly produced protective antibodies in a small group of healthy volunteers. Neutralizing antibodies were found in the 8 people took part in the safety trials for the mRNA-1273 vaccine, which could train the immune system to fight coronavirus, according to U.S. scientists. The drug, being tested by firm Moderna, injects a small sample of COVID-19's genetic code into patients. The amount is enough to encourage a response from the immune system, and the trials are expected to be rolled out more widely in the summer. Referring to Tal Zaks, chief medical officer at Moderna, these interim phase 1 data, while early, demonstrate that vaccination with mRNA-1273 elicits an immune response of the magnitude caused by natural infection, starting with a dose as low as 25 micrograms. According to them, these data substantiate our belief that mRNA-1273 has the potential to prevent COVID-19 disease and advance our ability to select a dose for pivotal trials. The findings, led by the National Institutes of Health, have not been peer-reviewed or published, but Professor Robin Shattuck, Professor of Mucosal Infection and Immunity, Imperial College London, called the early results encouraging. They also added, that is a promising start, but efficacy data will be key, followed by an ability to scale in a manner that provides global access should this vaccine be successful. A second phase of trials with around 600 people will begin soon, while a third involving thousands of people will start in July. Even if the coming trials are successful, Moderna's vaccine would not be available until between January and June 2021. U.S. President Donald Trump has said the U.S. would start mass production of any vaccines developed before they are fully approved so that they can be quickly distributed once rubber-stamped. Alongside vaccine development, doctors are trialing existing drugs for viruses such as Ebola, malaria and HIV. Early results seem promising but, until full clinical trials have been concluded, doctors cannot be certain that the drugs are effective. The Oxford University-led trial of hydroxychloroquine, originally a malaria drug, was hailed by Matt Hancock, the health secretary, in April as a major milestone in the battle against COVID-19. However, the results of an international study by the WHO, published last week, indicate that it increases the chances of death for hospitalized patients by 9 to 21%. The organization suspended its trial on Monday, citing safety concerns. But on Tuesday night, the leaders of the Oxford-led recovery trial, which operates in NHS hospitals, said they would continue on the basis their data did not show an increased risk. It has also been reported that GSK and Sanofi have teamed up to develop a coronavirus treatment, and plan to have a vaccine ready for testing by the end of 2020. UK Vaccine Taskforce. On April 17, the government launched a taskforce designed to rapidly develop a coronavirus vaccine, as well as scale up manufacturing so it can be quickly produced and delivered in mass quantities. It is led by Sir Patrick Vallance and Professor Jonathan Van Tam, the Deputy Chief Medical Officer, and members will include AstraZeneca and the Wellcome Trust. The government has initially earmarked £14 million to plough into 21 coronavirus research projects, such as the work by the scientists at the University of Oxford and Imperial College London. On April 21, an announcement of a further £44.5 million for the Oxford and Imperial trials increased this funding further still. A few weeks later, the Business Secretary, Alok Sharma, announced a further £84 million in new funding to help accelerate their work. He said, "This new money will help mass produce the Oxford vaccine so that if current trials are successful we have dosages to start vaccinating the UK population straight away." To help the UK mass produce a vaccine, Mr. Sharma has announced the UK's first vaccines manufacturing innovation centre is expected to open in summer 2021, a year ahead of schedule. He says, to further support their domestic manufacturing capabilities last month, they announced the government would accelerate building the UK's first vaccines manufacturing innovation centre, which is based at Harwell in Oxfordshire. And today they can announce that they will invest up to a further £93 million in the centre, ensuring that it opens in summer 2021, a full 12 months ahead of schedule. The centre, which is already under construction, will have capacity to produce enough vaccine doses to serve the entire UK population in as little as 6 months. How long does it take to make a vaccine and why? One crucial advance aiding vaccine research is the development of an organization called the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations (CEPI), set up in response to the lack of scientific progress when Ebola ripped through West Africa in 2014 to 2016. CEPI's mission is to rapidly respond to epidemics by providing the money to researchers to develop vaccines. CEPI is already developing at least 8 potential vaccines for COVID-19, and in January announced that a vaccine for COVID-19 would be ready for testing by the end of May. Researchers are confident they'll have at least one vaccine ready within 18 months. That would be the fastest humans have ever gone from seeing a brand new pathogen to developing a vaccine against it. However, Sir Patrick Vallance, the chief scientific advisor, has moved to temper public expectations, says, all new vaccines that come into development are long shots. Only some end up successful. Coronavirus will be no different and presents new challenges. This will take time. The biggest hurdle for vaccine development is manufacture and distribution at scale. It is estimated that CEPI needs at least another $2 billion in funding. The UK has already committed £250 million of aid to CEPI, the biggest donation of any country. Health experts have warned that the virus could hit Britain in multiple waves, which has led to fears that some vaccines might not work on mutated strains. But Professor Pollard says it is not surprising to see mutations in the virus due to its genetic makeup. He says, so far, there haven't been new viruses emerging, which are unable to be prevented by the types of immune responses that they expect to be generated by the vaccines being developed.